Hey guys, welcome back to the workshop today. Today we're gonna finish the build of this longbow. If you remember, the last video I was working on this, I kind of messed up in the handle. Okay, I definitely messed up on the handle, and today we're gonna fix it and we're gonna get this bow finished. Now the challenge we are facing is that we need to laminate this right here. We need to glue it onto here. Now we need to make it really flat, because if we do not make both of these pieces of wood really flat, it'll not be a good glue up. Now I do not have exactly the right tools that I wish I did to do this, but we're gonna make it work anyway. So we're gonna use sandpaper to flatten it, and we're gonna find something maybe like a drywall jack. Now because I do not have the ideal tools, this is about as flat a thing as I can find, just a good old drywall jack. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get sandpaper and I'm gonna flatten this, and we're gonna flatten the bow. So enjoy. Okay, so the solution that I came up with is to go ahead and put a hand plane here in the vise really loosely so I don't bend it, of course. Throw some sandpaper on there and flatten it that way. I think that's working the best. When you're doing this by hand, I find that it's a lot like sharpening a knife. What I mean by that is it takes a long time, and it's like right before you get it sharp, you want to give up. So I've got the little gap right there in the middle, and it's so small I'm tempted to think, oh, I'll just clamp that tight and it'll be okay, but I'm gonna resist that temptation. I worked on the addition, the riser part, a little bit longer, and it did end up getting completely flat against this hand plane. So in theory, if I get this bow completely flat on this hand plane as well, these will kiss up perfectly, and then I'll have no gaps and no chance of it separating once it's glued together. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the extra 20 minutes or whatever this takes to get this flat, and hopefully this will work out really good. I got the faces as flat as possible, and I went ahead and scraped up the backside with a rasp really gently just to give more surface area for the glue. I rasped notches out so that we can clamp it down really well. So it's time for the moment of truth. I'm gonna let it sit for a second to let it soak in, and then maybe add a little bit more. This would be called a sizing coat, just to put a thin layer on at first. let it soak in, and then add some more glue on it. That way the wood doesn't absorb all the glue. All right, last coat of glue here. And let's clamp it up. You always want to do a dry fit first, which I did. So your clamps are already at the right size, roughly at least. It's cold, it's rainy, and it's time to take these clamps off. It looks like the glue up turned out really, really well. There's a couple bubbles in it, but I think I'm gonna be able to work those out. That was where it was facing down and the glue dripped out. So I think if I could do it again, I might not use the vise, or I might put it vertical like this so the glue wouldn't drip out the bottom side. There's no reason to wait any longer, so let's go ahead and string this up to see if this glue up will hold. Oh, I hate this part. Come on, baby. Looks really solid. Looks solid and feels solid. That's a really good sign. All right, guys, we're getting really close to finishing this bow. All we've got to do is shape the handle, finish tailoring, shoot it, make sure it's working perfectly. This is my favorite part. I'm really excited about this. Garrett, you're really gonna like this bow. Actually, I might keep it. that, we've got the handle roughed out. It's looking good so far, but no reason to go further without putting it on the tillering board. So I'm going to put it on the tillering board to see if this still bends well and to see if that handle will hold up. So let's get this strung up real quick. Not quite to brace height yet. I put it in upside down. There's 20 inches. Whenever you're gluing more wood on the handle to make it thicker, your biggest concern is that that might separate. And so far it's looking really good. This is awesome. Okay, knowing that the bow will hold up, I'm going to go back and forth between shooting it and shaping the handle and tillering it until I get everything fine-tuned. Okay, so this is fairly exciting. We have another learning opportunity. Now I kind of suspected this might happen. So with the past 4 or 5 bows I've made, if you notice, they've already been bows previously, and then I try to make them into something new. This is because when I started making bows, I made like 10 or 15 bows that, you know, worked out really, really awfully. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if I could revive them, and pretty much every bow had a flaw to it. Like this one, if you remember, the reason I was trying to laminate a handle onto it is because there was a crack originally through the whole thing that I tried to get out way back in the beginning when I first built this bow 7 or 8 years ago. So far what I've learned is that if I don't add a bow backing to all these bows that I'm trying to redo, they tend to break. And they tend to break all for different reasons. And this one broke because the arrow rest is way too thin. You need that probably at least 1/2 inch. So you can see how it's split right there at the handle. And if you're gonna go through with such a thin handle section, it's best to back the bow, definitely. So with reviving these bows, I've had success with 2 bows and failures with 2 bows, but I think it's been really good because I'm learning what I need to do in order to keep the bows from breaking. And in both situations, it's because of the backing. And that's pretty much the only reason bows break, is because the back is not sufficient. Either you cut through a growth ring, which I did on the previous bow I broke, or in this case, I just cut way too far in on the arrow rest, and that caused it to break. And so my other option would have been to, instead of cutting in an arrow rest, build out an arrow rest. And I could have laminated just a little triangular piece of wood there, and that would have been the way to go. I didn't honestly even think of that as I was building it because I was so focused on making the handle thick enough and laminating that other piece of wood on there. So that's another lesson learned here making bows in the wood shop. For Garrett, don't worry, I'm still going to make him a bow. I'm going to make one that doesn't break, and that will never break on him. So lesson learned, don't cut your arrow rest below 3/4 of an inch would be my recommendation. If you cut it below that, you're probably going to want to have a bow backing on it if you're using wood self bows, or at least Osage in this case. Guys, it's been a fun build. I'm going to take note of this mentally, and I'll probably write it down, because if you write down all your mistakes, then when you're building your next one, you can look over your mistakes and be like, oh, don't cut that handle section too thin, or, you know, oh, there's a crack in the back of the growth ring. We're going to definitely need to sinew that before we draw it back far. And that's what makes bow making so fun, is it's like such minor details that cause the bow to work or to break. And like, this probably took me less than a minute to cut that arrow rest in, and look what happens, you know, and hours of time just gone just like that. So all that time is wasted unless we take the learning lessons from it. So let's do that. I think I'm still going to be able to use this handle section, so that's going to be really fun to use. It was looking awesome. If you saw that, look at those clips. Man, that was cool. Check this out. I found another piece, and it comes right there. So what also happened is I didn't follow the grain of the wood. I've got grain running off the side of the wood here, and so that's split. If you follow the grain all the way to the tip, there's no spot on the side of the bow for it to split off. So that's another problem I made probably when I was splitting the wood in the very beginning. 2 lessons learned today. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I'm going to make bows that actually work, and I'm going to hunt with them this next year. And we're going to have a lot of fun taking on this traditional archery challenge, not by just using traditional archery, but making it ourselves. So stick around, subscribe if you haven't. We're about to cross that 100 subscriber mark, and so 1,000's next. Thanks everybody who has subscribed, and you guys have a great day.